Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the last of the movies in my Dario Argento week. And what a marvellous week it's been, absolutely full of classic giallo horror films from the master himself. So tonight we can only end with what I believe to be his greatest work. So we're going to review that, and it's going to be Tenebrae, of course. This is my favourite Dario Argento film. This sort of really, it's an early 70s film of his. Now, he is actually still making films and stuff. Um, and this one is out in the early 70s, and it's sort of, the story is a very clever story, based in between America and sort of Rome, and it's based on a guy called Peter Dean, I believe his character's name, and he's an author, and he writes sort of giallo sort of books and stories and thrillers, and he's wrote this book called Tenebrae, which is about this killer which stalks and kills these sort of women. There's a few bits in the film where he's sort of approached that there's a kind of two or three twists in the film to try and lead you down these different paths of like who's the sort of like killer or protagonist in this film, because there's a series of murders that take place, very gruesome and grisly murders that take place that seem to replicate some things that happen in his book, and some things happen because of the book. So all these sort of things are there to try and throw you off what's happening, because that, like, in the first sort of 20 minutes of film, you get introduced to three sort of women. You get one at an airport, which I believe is maybe his ex-wife or partner. So you're sort of like thinking, is she the killer? Because she's her and her friend have sort of manipulated his bag and destroyed some of his belongings. So you think, oh, these people have got some vendetta against him. And then you meet a young girl who comes in to do some plumbing in his flat, who turns out to be a really big fan of his. So then you think, oh, is this going to be her? She's a copycat killer. And then you get another woman reporter in the film who's very anti his book, because she believes it to be sexist and all this. So is she the crime kid? Is she the one sort of like doing it because of the sexist sort of way it's portrayed? So you're given all these different roads and paths to sort of try and figure out what is going on in the film. And the film is sort of built with some wonderful characters. You have the main character, Peter's PA, who's played by John Saxon, and he sort of really brings some humour almost to the film, which is not like him, but he brings a real sense of humour to the film, and it's really, really cool. And his part is quite funny. Yeah, so that's really cool. And then there's sort of like, he's got some staff that work for him, and all these characters are so wonderful, and they've all appeared in pretty much most of Argento films. There's loads of recognisable actors and actresses in these films that you think, oh, I've seen her in Deep Red and all this sort of thing, and they all bring something rather wonderful to the film, and all based around this author. And then you've got this sort of blundering detectives that walking around with their guns like this, and trying to make it like an American kind of thriller to appeal to the American sort of market. I would have believed. I think this was sort of made with a American sort of company in a budget, so I think they had to try and make it a bit more sort of like Americanized, if you like, more than these other films which were more obviously European. This one had to have that sort of detective sort of feel to it, and that they sort of blunder around in the film and don't really sort of like get anywhere too fast. And Peter keeps receiving these sort of letters um, of like quotes and stuff from his books and stuff at his door after these killings have been done, and these killings are quite gruesome. There's a lot of sort of it's a very obvious giallo killer where we get a, a cutthroat razor and black gloves, so you know it's a typical giallo sort of like who done it sort of film, and that sort of paces throughout the whole film with a wonderful sort of soundtrack which sort of fits the film but doesn't. Um, Especially when the killings are happening, the soundtrack seems to really pick up and almost sounds quite disco-y in places, which is quite strange. And some of the acting is very, very funny, especially from some of the sort of female victims of the of the killer. They all act in a sort of very over the top kind of way, and I like that too. It's really, really cool. And the story sort of all sort of builds up to this climatic end, which is an absolute shocker. It's an ending that you don't expect and you don't see it sort of coming, and that is the wonderful, wonderful. That's what makes this film incredible. Not just because of its amazing pacing. The pacing is fantastic, and the way the story is structured is definitely Argento's masterpiece in my eyes. Everyone thinks, of course, they all think Suspiria, which is incredible, but this to me is the masterpiece for him. So that's answered the next question. What do I think of the film? It's a masterpiece, I think, of horror film. It's just really unique and really sort of original, and it brings some of the most finer points of Argento's work almost together. He's sort of like, to me, this is his ultimate work. He's a genius. He's done some incredible films. He's done some bloody awful films as well. Dracula being one. His version of Dracula is awful. But then he's done some absolutely amazing, amazing films, which we've already touched on in this week with Opera, which I love, and I really love Deep Red. Some amazing films, and I love Suspiria, I really do. But this is the one that I go to for everyone else. What's your favourite Argento? It's definitely Tenebrae. It's just something really unique about it. The pluses of this Arrow version, it looks amazing. It looks really, really cool. Some great natural grain in the film. It's dubbed really cool, which I really like. And there's some great extra sort of features and an introduction to the film before it starts. And I just love the way the film sort of plays out. And I love all the characters. It's great to see our man again, John Saxon, making an appearance. He must be in pretty much 50% of Italian horror films, I think. But absolutely fantastic. Negatives of the film, there isn't any. I suppose if you want in a real out and out horror, you'll be disappointed because this is a sort of slow burn, slow paced giallo horror film, and it does have a lot of investigation and a lot of sort of like mixy matchy. What does that mean? What's going on there? What's this? But then it all sort of piles together at the end and it falls into place. It's that sort of story. So if you're not into that, that could be a negative. But to me, I love that. So I'm going to score the film Tenebrae an essential watch, and I'm going to give that a 10 out of 10. And that is my favourite Dario Argento film, Tenebrae, 10 out of 10. any of you guys seen it? If you have, let me know down below what you thought of it. It's really, really cool film. It was so different to his other films. Most of his films are very, very artistic, and they're all based around the look of the film. Um, from simple details like the lighting of the film, the wallpaper, the layout of the furniture in a room, whatever. It's all very artistically done, and it's very, very Italian. You know, it's very, very Italian, and it's very, very cool. Um, Everything's in place, and they're just fantastic. But this one, sort of a little bit different from that. Like I said, it had that bit more of an American feel to it, a bit more of a classic sort of detective sort of thing to it, which I think that's what made it stand out to me, because it was so different from his other works. Um, and it's just absolutely fantastic, and there's some great kills in the film, so I loved it, and there's some great gore. This was on the video nasty list, this one, and I believe Suspiria were his two films that hit the video nasty list. I'm not sure if his films that he did with Umberto Lenzi, the demon films, that might have also hit the video nasties. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, this was on the list, and it's an amazing film. 10 out of 10. So there we go, guys. That's the end of my Dario Argento week. So we've looked at opera. We have also looked at the Tenebrae, and we've looked at Four Flies Over Grey Velvet. So it's been a great week checking over some of his great works. He's got such a massive back catalogue of films, because in the early 70s he was almost knocking out 2 films a year, so he's got quite a vast back catalogue, which I will try and do some over my channel in the upcoming weeks. Maybe things like the Cat of Nine Tails and things like that, things that very rarely get looked at, and we will try and delve into some of those. I hope you've enjoyed this week. I've got another week coming up of Specialist Week. It's going to be a Vincent Price week. So that's going to be coming up, looking at 3 classic Vincent Price films. So look out for that. Until next time, please check out some horror channels on me. Check out Horror Hands, Horror Geek, Man v Film, RS Designs, Pizzawell. I'm the Ice Lord. Cat Watches Horror Movies, Sarah of Horror. Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House, and a massive shout out to my horror freak son, Lemon Lord. Until next time, look after yourself, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.